Welcome to the Learning Landscape. My name is Simon Matthews. This podcast is supported by Independent Schools Tasmania. Today we are speaking with Nicola Collins from the Friends School. Nicola, why don't we start by having you introduce yourself and perhaps tell us about your role at Friends and a little bit about the school community that you serve.
So my name is Nicola Collins and I am Learning Leader in the middle school. And my Learning Leader role in the first 2 years, I looked after Year 7 English, Humanities, Maths, Science, our Integrated Connections program, and Year 7 and 8 Arts and HPE. So that was quite a lot. This year, we've kind of got our program together in this year. So 7 and 8 now we really wanted to make that progression work. So I've been looking after English, Humanities, 7, 8, along with Arts and HPE. Friends is a Quaker school, so we're an independent school, a Quaker school, and we value very much what we call the spices. So simplicity and peace, integrity, community, earth care and equality. And one of the tenets of Quakerism is the belief of that of good or that of God in everyone. So I think one of the things that I would say to sum up our community is that we look for the good in everybody.
That's a beautiful summary, so thank you.
And I suppose the other thing to say is we started the middle school in 2024, so we're 3 years into our journey. So Year 11 and 12 and E to 6 used to be on the Argyle Street campus, and we had 7 to 10 on the Commercial Road campus. And so we've moved 7 and 8 over to the Argyle Street campus to make E to 8, and we've made 9 to 12 over on the Commercial Road campus. So there's been quite a lot of change in amongst all of our literacy work as well.
So that change happened at the time when the Lifting Literacy project commenced.
100%. So, and that's probably why we feel we're a bit slow getting off the mark. But the first 6 months for us here in the middle school was really getting our Year 7 and Year 8 programs, because we changed everything. Like, we've changed our whole curriculum, we've connected learning, we've always had a connections program. So it was kind of term 3, 2024, thanks to Jess Scurry, who was working with Susie and the team. And she said, we've got to start doing this, we've got to start doing that. So that's kind of how we got going on the literacy journey.
Tell us, so you've told us a little bit about the structure of the school, which is helpful, but tell us what you were seeing and experiencing in the area of literacy and literacy teaching when the minimum schooling commenced.
So if I go back to thinking about Year 7 to 10 in our old high school model, I would say very much literacy was the responsibility of the English classroom teacher. And so if there was a spelling program, that would be rolled out by the English teacher. Obviously, other subjects were teaching specific writing skills. So if you're writing a report in science, they would explicitly teach how to write that report. We've always had word walls with vocabulary, but we certainly weren't explicitly teaching vocabulary to, get it into the long-term memory. I would say we very much taught something and moved on. We were not using the spaced learning retrieval practice, which we are using now. And certainly we were doing more silent reading than reading aloud. So that's certainly one of the things that we've changed, knowing that fluency in reading is really important to accessing comprehension and things like that as well. So that's probably, what it looked like.
I love it that you're talking there about saying we learnt this and so there we started that.
Yeah, we've learnt a lot. I mean, I've been teaching English for a long time, and obviously I've learnt so much in these last couple of years about literacy and what we can be doing as secondary teachers to support the students in our class at all tier levels.
Because that's an interesting point that you're making there. You're saying, even though I was a secondary teacher, I actually had some learning to do and I had some actions to take to ensure that my students were increasing their likelihood of learning literacy well.
Yeah, and the other thing we weren't doing is we weren't responding to the data, and obviously that's one of the biggest changes. So collecting the data, we weren't using Dibble's oral reading fluency, we weren't using Maze in 2023. So all of those things have come about, because of the mandate and the minimum schooling guarantee.
Yeah, that's interesting. What data were you collecting?
So we really were responding to NAPLAN data, and we would use the South Australian spelling test. And so from that we grouped students into groups by their scores, and then we would just do weekly lists of random words. So we've changed that as well.
Yeah. What does the use of Dibbles look like in your school?
So we use Dibble's K to 8 or 3 to 8, I don't know, wherever it starts up to year 8. And so in year 7, at the beginning of the year, we do the 1 minute read aloud and the 3 minute maze. And from that data, we have actually planned our own intervention program, which we start in term 2 of year 7. And that includes a booklet that goes home. So obviously we have parent and student buy-in, and that booklet goes home. There's a session offered in the morning, one morning a week, where the teacher leading it will take the students through the booklet. The first part of the booklet is a bit of retrieval for their sentence level work, so language and literacy. We create a read aloud that's probably 200 words. There's a less challenging and a more challenging, and the students are encouraged to read that daily. So the first 2 reads, they're looking at decoding words and being able to make sense of the passage. The next couple of reads, they're working on their fluency, and then hopefully by the end of the week, they're working on the prosody, so their expression. We also, and those readings come from the work we're doing at the time. So if it's term 2, week 2, we're doing Mungo Man. And so we've got a less challenging and a more challenging read about Mungo Man, and that's just reinforcing the work that they're doing in the classroom. We also then make our maze, so we create our own mazes. So if we're doing ancient Greece, we might have one about ancient Greece, we might have one about Zeus. And so there are 3 opportunities in the week for them to respond to that. And that's where we've seen our biggest growth in our students who were well below benchmark to be able to be at benchmark by the end of the year. And that program continues in year 8. And so what we do is we progress monitor. So every 5 weeks, we progress monitor those students. So we use the Dibbles and the Maze progress monitoring materials. And when a student reaches benchmark, they can come out of that program. But we find that parents want them to continue so they don't go backwards. So I had students last year who were at benchmark by, say, the middle of the year, but we kept doing the program. And then obviously at the start of year 8, they also do the testing, and then that same program is rolled out. We don't start the program in year 7 till term 2, because we have a whole term where we've started to read aloud every lesson, and I can talk you through the lesson structure and stuff like that. So we don't start that intervention straight away, because we actually think our tier 1 instruction will catch up some of those students. And the testing at the start of the year, the kids are nervous. Like, they don't know the person who's doing the testing, and they can stumble over a word and then they can't catch themselves. So there's lots of reasons why students are not at benchmark.
So I'm no expert in this, but it sounds to me like you're saying we've changed our tier 1, so we've introduced reading aloud and trying to get fluency. That's going to lift the boats of some kids. But by term 2, you've got the opportunity to do appropriate testing, and then those students who are not at benchmark, you're saying we're going to have a tier 2, and so we're going to do more of what we're doing in the classroom, but these kids are going to have really targeted interventions, and you're saying that then what you're seeing, some of those students then rise and are able to move back into a tier 1 environment.
That's exactly right. And certainly you would understand that when there is parent buy-in and student buy-in, sometimes the student buy-in happens because the parents buy-in, but what we're noticing, and we were just talking about it this morning, success begets success. Like, the more success that the students have, they realise that the work that they're putting in is worth it. Another intervention, and there's lots of things that we're doing. We're actually running, so last year for spelling, at the end of year 7, we had about 18 students who were really below benchmark, and it was impacting obviously so many aspects of their work. So we have literacy classes that they do literacy instead of doing a language, and we can talk more about that later. But these students who were not in that class, so we offered the Spelling Through Morphographs, which is a Spell and Mastery CDE program, as intervention. And so 18 students come 2 mornings a week, and we run 2 lessons each. We're halfway through the program. We're at lesson 70 of 140. But these students are making such gains in their spelling. And I was only saying this morning, like, you know, we're spelling words like regression, and we understand that re and gress and shin, and they know all the parts of the words. And so they're actually seeing the connections, and they're seeing how well they're doing in their spelling. And so when they go to write, they've reduced their cognitive load because they're not wondering how that word needs to be spelled. So that's another intervention that we've decided to offer. And it's definitely having huge improvement.
Let's go back to your beautiful comment before about success begetting success. What are you seeing? Let's pick it up in teachers. How is this change way of teaching and intervening able to encourage and equip them and let them see impacts? What's it doing for them? And then let's pick up the students, which you've started to tell me about, and then let's pick up families. Yeah, let's start with teachers. What are you seeing?
So we are very lucky in the middle school. One of the non-negotiables when we changed our timetable structure was that we would have time in our timetable for collaborative planning. And so every week, year 7 English humanities, and I'll just use like 1 year group as an example. Year 7 English humanities teachers, we have a 1 hour timetabled meeting, Thursday period 6, and every teacher who teaches year 7 English and humanities is there, along with our access and inclusion teacher. And so we have that time to work out what it is we're doing. So obviously we've really focused on curriculum. Everything we do is connected. And so then once the curriculum was embedded, then we started, okay, we need to do paired reading aloud. Jess, I can hear Jess in my head. So we go, okay, it's term 3. We're doing a brand new novel. It's called Alex by Roseanne Hawke. Connects to the environment because it's about drought in South Australia. So instead of the teacher reading all the time or then students silent reading, we just started by reading aloud. And the kids loved it. Like, they absolutely loved it. And if you were short for time and you said, okay, read chapter 18 to yourself, no, I want to read it aloud. So we, as teachers, what we've seen is every time we've started something, we have seen the gains immediately. So you can hear when the students read, and we do the 1-2. So our classes are obviously front-facing when we're doing explicit instruction, and the tables they're in a table of 4, but they're paired 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And so you start reading paragraph 1 or page 1 or however you want to do it. And so as soon as you say paired reading, they turn and they start reading. Within the classroom, no one moves, no one does anything. It's just at conversational level. And we could hear immediately the increase in their fluency, their accuracy, their expression, and all that kind of stuff. And so then we kept that going. So in term 4, we said, all right, let's do small group novel. So every table of 4, or if the kids wanted to work in their own group of choice. So we went up to the library, we've got all these Readers' Cup small groups, and so they started small group. And then next year we said, right, we've got to keep it going. So we do poetry in term 1. So we curated a poetry anthology. And so every lesson I would read a poem, person 1 would read the poem, person 2 would read the poem. We're then doing our cultures and context units. And so Jess said, why don't we do some excerpts from growing up Aboriginal in Australia? So we did those. We had some spirit stories. We had Young Dark Emu. In term 2, we're doing ancient Greece alongside the hero's journey trope. So we've curated, using AI, like we use AI a lot to generate this material, little readings about Zeus and Athena and Hermes and all the characters that they're going to see. And so we load that in GoodNotes. So I just go, okay, paired reading, multimodal, go. And so it just, in GoodNotes, it's there ready to go. So teachers see the improvement. The next thing we focused on was vocabulary. So at the end of 2024, Jess is going, we've got to explicitly teach vocab. We've got to do that. So we looked at our poetry anthology and we created some pretty, high language poems that they were reading. And so we picked out 27 words that we spread out across that unit, so about 7 weeks. So mostly trying to do 1 word a lesson, sometimes 2, because you wanted to do it before you read the poem the next lesson. And we created our own slide deck. So everyone uses the same slide deck. We've made it so the first page is a cover that gets printed out and put up in the room. And there's a routine. And so we very much looked at the work of Anita Archer. And so teachers found the students are using these words. So I've got a year 7 last year who used realm and archetype and monomyth and all of those words. Not just one girl, but like I highlighted every one of those vocab words, archetypal, that she's using in year 7. And so the teachers saw the success. We are very lucky here to work with Norden Zuber, who's been at Friends since 2023 and agreed to come and work in the middle school. What he's brought to our team is the notion of retrieval practice and space learning. So every maths lesson starts with retrieval practice. So it's like your entry routine, you get in there, you've got your stuff. And so what we said at the end of 24 is we need a lesson starter. We need retrieval practice. So all our vocab words we created. So after you've done those words, you might have a word, some questions, you might have a crossword, you might have a definition matching, you might do a word wall, you might do retrieval for your spelling, assimilated prefixes. That's what we start with. And so that's been the other thing. So, teachers are seeing how much students are retaining the knowledge of those words that we're using. When we did the novel in term 3, 2024, Jess said, we've got to do sentence level work. So we created a lesson sequence that went alongside the novel. So let's say lesson 1 was for chapters 1 to 4, and we used sentence examples from that. And so then we decided to do some retrieval practice of those. So we did them at the beginning of the year, and then they became lesson starters. The other big thing that I will talk about, don't let me forget, is skills block. So we can come back to that. So what the teachers are seeing is that the students' writing is improving. The students, we've just done an in-class essay in Year 7 where the students have written a 5-paragraph essay on Mungo Man, embedding quotations. They had notes, we gave them the quotes, we went through it, but these are Year 7s. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Looking at the perspectives of Mungo Man between the Aboriginal and the science. And
Jump into skills blocks now. Tell me about skills blocks.
So we've always had a program in Year 7 called Connections. And it is to connect to the learning areas in a transdisciplinary way. And historically, it's been 5 periods. And in our first year, it was 5 lessons on a Friday. But we had to have a lesson for languages just because we couldn't fit it somewhere in the week. And so some people started period 1 connections, period 2 languages, then they had the rest of the day with connections. And so we just found that it was just a little messy. And we actually the kids are working smarter, faster and harder these days. And so we actually didn't need 5 hours for our program. We actually could consolidate it and make it really snappy into 4 hours. And so we created a session called Skills Block, which is delivered by the key teacher. So this is delivered by a maths, a science or an English humanities teacher. And it's not just for literacy, it is for numeracy, but I would say literacy probably takes up 75% of the allocation. And so it has a routine. And so it's like daily review, but it's weekly review in some ways, because we can't fit daily review into our timetable because we don't see our class every day. So 5 minutes entry routine is fluency by heart. So they're doing their times tables. We then test the words that we've delivered the week before. So it's a 5-minute spelling test of 15 words, and that's marked in real time, and then they record their score, and then we record the score. Then we introduce the new morphograph, so we start with assimilated prefixes, and this is another thing. We've developed our slide deck so that it fits how we want it to roll. So let's say we introduce the base, so port means to carry, then we've got 5 words that have the morphograph port in it, and obviously we're connecting to our assimilated prefixes from the start of the year, so looking at con, and stuff like that. And then we do 5 words for the second base, so it might be firm, which means support. And then we have 5 retrieval words. And so when we're going through that slide deck, when we get to portable, they spell that word before we show them the word. And so they're trying to recall, I know port because I've just been taught it. I know able because I know that that's the suffix. So putting those 2 words together. Things like confirmation. So I've done a assimilated prefix con, firm, 8. Hopefully I've remembered I'm dropping the E and I should know what shun looks like. And so they use their whiteboards, they show the word, and I'm just doing it, yep, check your doubling, you've missed that. Then we show the word, do the definition, then we sound out the word, so confirmation, and then we say the whole word. And so we've developed that, and our maths and science teachers are delivering that every Friday morning.
Wow.
And then we've used WordWall, which is like a game platform. We pay for the license. And we make look, cover, write checks. And so then the students write out the word sum and the whole word in GoodNotes. Then they've got some time to play WordWall or look, cover, write check. Then we deliver sentence level, so we might be doing the positives. Then we've got a worksheet that goes along with that. I'm normally done by 9:15, so we have a 15-minute opportunity block. But that's the routine. That is the routine.
That's great. And I'm imagining that reduces cognitive load for teachers and for kids.
Yeah, and we kind of, so everything that we've done reduces, and that's the big thing, reduces cognitive load. The kids love the routine. They absolutely love it. With our vocab slide decks, the word is archetype. What's the word? Archetype. The word is archetype. An archetype is a what type of word? Then you've got a definition. Then you've got some thumbs up. The other big thing that I should have said at the beginning, I never checked for understanding.
Yeah.
Never. I'm just rambling on at the front of the room. Don't know who's with me. And so straight away, do you know this definition of archetype? And the kid goes like that, and then they go, oh, okay, So there's a chance to change it in real time. But all of that, that you're checking for understanding. Are you with me? Yes, you're with me. Okay, I'll keep going. That's been a really big part of the change to our practice.
Let me just reflect back something you've said, and then I want to move to a new idea. So it sounds to me like you just started with little blocks of things, got success, and then said, okay, let's go. So, the idea of reading fluency. Okay, students have got that. We think we got their head around that. Let's go to vocab. Same again. Let's go to sentence level. So it sounds to me that your journey's been one of little steps that have been implemented well, success has been achieved, and you go, right, what's next?
Yeah, 100%. I think that is the best summary. And I think as learning leader, like we were saying at the end of 24, we've got to do vocab. And like Jess has done all the things. I had COVID to start my summer holidays in 2024. I live with my elderly father. I was upstairs. So I was upstairs for 5 days. I actually wasn't unwell. I just was still testing positive. Yeah. So I designed the vocab slide decks. I made all the vocab slide decks for the 27 words. And because I'd made it, it was in my head exactly how I wanted it to be, but it became the template. And so then I could say to the next team member, all right, we're doing Hero's Journey trope. Let's, as a team, come up with the words. Now can you model that and can you make those words? Or I said to my humanities, people, because some of us organise English and some organise humanities, just so we don't have to do everything. And so they could follow the model. They just copied the slide deck and then changed it for the words. Because we set it up, same with the lesson starters. So we did lesson starters in English, then we did them in humanities. And so once they've got a model, they then go, oh, I can do that. And AI is our friend in terms of those those lesson starters, those vocab slide decks. Like I can put the plain text into AI and say, can you make this for these 4 new words? Same sequence, but just different things. So, yeah, I think by people knowing what it looks like, feels like, sounds like, then they go, I can do that. And the big thing we're doing this year is we did the vocabs, and yes, we did word wall retrieval. Yes, we played lookers and cahoots, but we didn't retrieve them in the vocab explicit instruction. So that's the thing that we've added to that this year. So you're 100% right. We've done this. We've had success. We're very reflective. Like our collaborative planning time gives us the opportunity to reflect. Mungo Man, we've changed how we've done that task 3 times. Every year it's been different. This year we nailed it. Like we set them up for success. We made them do it in under test conditions in an hour, and man, they rose to the challenge. So good summary.
I love your point about reflection. It sounds to me that you and your team do a lot of stopping. How did it go? What needs to be refined? What succeeded? What didn't? What will we do next?
Yep, 100%. And it is that collaborative planning that allows you to do that. So obviously in the meeting, and like we've got new staff every year teaching this for the first time. In those collaborative planning meetings, like we're about to do an OPVL source analysis in humanities on ancient Sparta. And so I can step through how I would teach that. So you're modelling for your colleagues. And then obviously once you've done a task, we moderate just about every task. So whether it's formally written down, bring along a sample of your Mungo Man, let's have a look at a couple. Yep, but that's a B. We upload every student work in sector, so I can go into my colleagues and go, oh, what does their C look like? Does it look the same as mine? Or a new teacher can go into sector and go, I just want to get a guide of what's an A, what's a B, what's a C. So all of that is due to the collaborative planning time, which has just been gold.
Yeah. And the other thing that you're saying, which is interesting, you're saying that this has taken really strong and strategic leadership, but underneath that has been this huge foundation of collaboration. It's not just one person saying, thou shalt. It's saying, okay, clearly someone is leading this, but we're walking together. We're participating in that journey together.
Yeah, and we were lucky. We've had 2 staff from our primary school join us on this journey. And so both of those Jane takes the year 8 literacy group. So the other thing that we've got certainly for tier 2 and tier 3 is we have some students who don't do a second language. And so they have 3 hours a week where they're actually in literacy. And so that program's developed. So at the start of year 7, they are doing the spelling through morphographs program. So they get that 3 times a week. They've got support for curriculum. So if we're doing the hero's journey, Percy Jackson, they might just step out the essay. So they're supported with that. They do fluency work. They do comprehension work. They do sentence level work. They are progress monitored regularly. That's where we would have our tier 2 and tier 3 instructions. So if they need more investigation, they might do the YARC assessment. They might deliver the MacLit program, and so that's happening for those students in that time. And so Jane has very much taken the mantle of year 8 literacy in tier 1 instruction in the classroom, and she also worked with us at the end of 2024. So she had an opportunity to see what we're doing in year 7, and so what we are now seeing is that the students in year 8 are getting exactly what they got in year 7. So they're delivering a spelling program because that dropped off last year. They're delivering the vocab from the start of the year exactly as we are, same template, slide deck, different words. They have a lesson starter for every lesson. So that continuity now is nailed. So we are really excited. First time ever for NAPLAN 2027 Year 9. And I will cry. I will cry if the data doesn't show us that we've done a good job. But anyway, stay tuned.
It's sounding phenomenal. Let me pick up one of the things that we hear in the media, in the public sphere, but also I think we hear it in private conversations, the idea that explicit instruction works against any sense of inquiry or big picture thinking or this whole idea behind, an IB score. What have you found? What are you seeing in relation to students' ability to really explore and imagine and go really big places and also be able to benefit strongly from explicit direct instruction?
So I think certainly my personal philosophy, and I would say the team's philosophy in the middle school, there is no one pedagogy, there is no one instructional model. And so the smart teachers and the smart teams choose the right pedagogy for the right time. And so the evidence strongly suggests that the explicit instruction model can help in literacy. So the vocab, it's a 2 or 3 minute time out of your lesson, but the impact that it has is huge. The paired reading aloud is 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but it's every day when we've got English. Our connections program, we've changed our program to respond to our middle school model. We've strengthened a lot of elements of it, student agency, the connection to what we're doing. I think that the inquiry element of that is actually strengthened because the students' skill level is higher and they're braver to take risks because learning is no longer this thing that is out of the reach of some students. And going back to that success, they feel safe, they feel able to take on the challenges that we're presenting in the transdisciplinary space. So that skill level will always support that transdisciplinary work that you do. So I've always believed that the two things should work together, not in opposition. Yeah. And it's not a one model. We're not a one model school.
Yeah. I love it. That's a really helpful and professional response, which just cuts through the sort of literacy wars that we find ourselves in.
One of the other things that I think we've done quite differently, looking at Rosenshine's principles of the I do, we do, you do. And so in our task design, we have used explicit instruction. So we have a slide deck on Percy Jackson. We go through the 12 stages of the hero's journey trope. The first 4 stages, we provide quotations that they could use to support each stage. So the refusal of the call, he says, I'm not a hero, I'm a loser. So, and they've got the timestamp. The next 4 stages, when we get to body paragraph 2, looking at Act 2, the complication, we might have 1 or 2 quotations. By the time we get to the last stage, the resolution, we have no quotations because now you need to go back to the film and find some that you're going to use. We don't differentiate for many students because our task design gives the students everything that they would need. So, there's very few students who are not responding to the tasks that everyone else is doing. So that's been another important part as well. Probably the turn and talk.
By changing the pedagogy.
Yeah. The other thing we talked for checking for understanding and stuff like that, integrating the turn and talks. Okay, so who's your favourite archetypal hero? Who's our archetypal villain? 1, tell 2, 2, tell 1. So just having that engagement. So it's not just the listening time. All right, what quote will you use? Turn and talk to your partner. So that's been something that I haven't done in my teaching practice. Yeah, we've had discussions, but not that turn and talk, come back, turn and talk. Oh, I heard you say this, that cold calling. Don't wait for the hands up. Yeah, hey, Simon, what did who's your favourite villain or whatever?
That's such a transformation in such a short time.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, it's good. Let's go back to something you said before. You've talked us through this idea that we've changed this, we're now doing that, we're doing this more intentionally. What have you stopped? What has gone out of the teaching because you're now doing these other things?
That is a great question. When I did a novel, we would mostly read it silently. So I would model reading the first part of a chapter, and then I'd say, okay, finish reading the chapter to yourself. I still take my students to the library once a week, and they choose their own book, and they do have some time for silent reading. But certainly everything else in class, we read aloud. We would just put word walls up, we'd have words up, we'd never really explicitly refer to them. So, yeah, now we're doing that. We've stopped a random list of spelling words, so we teach the morphographs, and so we're not using, okay, here's 10 words because you're in the purple group or you're in the blue group. So explicitly teaching the morphographs and then getting them to understand the more morphographs they know, the more words they can spell. And the Spelling Through Mastery program, the Spelling Through Morphographs program, once they finish that program, they can spell 12,000 words. Like that is like, and so I keep saying to the students, like, when we spelled this morning progressively, they know all the parts. I said, this is one of the 12,000 words you can spell at the end of this program. So stay the course, I said, stay the course. I'm just trying to think, so that's probably all we've stopped doing because, I think we've been doing a lot of stuff well.
Yeah. We talked before about someone leading, a lot of collaborating. What place has formal professional learning for the team look like? So obviously your leaders are learning, there's growth there. Has that further training and development come from leaders modelling and talking and involving, or have there been particular points where you've said, okay, we're going to get someone in, there's going to be some professional learning?
Everything we've got has come out of your ISTPL program that you ran last year. So literally, we have done nothing else. We've just turned up, learnt from Jessica, learnt from Lorraine, watched I didn't meet Anita yet, watched Anita on YouTube. So it's literally just come from that. And obviously us then saying, for our middle school context, what do we want our vocab instruction to look like? And so, created, when we first did our first vocab words, I wrote a script. I wrote the script and I had too many slides. Like Nicola was suffering from COVID when she did make those slide decks. So we have refined them over time. But it really has just been through your PL. And then Jane joined me in 2025. So Jess was kind of on the ground in 24. And then Jane and I did the secondary one last year. And we've just made it up from that.
But it's been so iterative. I mean, you're saying, okay, we've learned, this makes sense. But then you just said that. You said, what does this look like in our context? So you're actually doing this layer of contextual analysis that says that will work, that won't work. We're going to have a crack at this. And then you do it, and you bring in the reflection. And you say, okay, what's going to change? So there's this beautiful, almost action research cycle that's going there for you.
Yeah, 100%. And with inquiry-based learning, we're all about the design model. So, you try something, you look at it, you review it, you redesign it, you retry it, you do whatever. So it all goes hand in hand. And we're just wired that way. We're wired to get it right. We're wired for success. And we'll just keep doing it till we do. And one of the things that you said, how are the students? As soon as that vocab slide deck comes up, because it's got a colour and then it's got a line and they're waiting for the word to appear, they're like this.
We're talking grade 7s.
We're talking grade 7. And they're all in. Because, obviously when I do the first one, Simon, if you're not going to read the sentence aloud now, you can do it at break time. And so they all say the sentence aloud. But they read together. So, say the sentence aloud, put in the missing word. Whatever the missing word is, transformation. So it's just amazing. Seeing that in action, everyone, we've had Launceston Church Grammar come down. We hosted moderation here last week with Hutchins Collegiate and Farn, and I went through some of those things with them. We had a sharing session. And everyone who comes is in awe of what we have created, and we're pretty proud.
And you should be. This is a beautiful key piece to our publication, which basically our publication, we're trying to say to our members, let's celebrate the good work that's going on. We're trying to say to our minister and our government, what you implemented, what you mandated, this is the impact that it's having. And so we're really wanting to tell that story, and that this will be great. If you had the opportunity to speak to every teacher in an independent school in Tassie, what's one message you'd give them around the Lifting Literacy project? Because as we know, it covers all teachers, not just English teachers or HAS. What would you say?
Maximise any gain for reading aloud. So to me, that's the big one. So if you've got a task sheet, a worksheet, information, pair read it aloud. That would be the first thing. Choose vocabulary that is important in your subject and explicitly teach them. And so what we've done at Friends in the middle school is we've presented to our staff, and so our staff are now taking up vocab. So science teachers explicitly teaching their words. So we've modelled, we've copied our slide decks, they're creating their own slide decks. Art, Luke's in art, Matthew's done slightly different in design and technology, but like he's got a sheet with the word, a picture and a definition of all the things that are important, and he tested them on that last week. So start small. I would start with paired reading. That's exactly where we started. Start with vocab, one word a lesson, and then retrieval practice. Share the load, like decide what you want it to look like, and then use AI to roll it out. Use a lesson starter. Get them in the room, no waste of time. Don't wait for everyone to be in there and then call the roll. Like they can have finished the lesson starter, and then I've done the roll, and then we're ready to go. Yeah. And you have to know what it looks like. So term 1 English, every lesson has a hyperlink. So this is the lesson starter. So every teacher is in that planning document. This is the word wall, look, cover, write, check. This is the paired reading. This is the vocabulary. This is the vocabulary retrieval. Now we're into lesson content.
Just take me back to what you just said then. So you're talking about the planning document, that's hyperlinked. Just explain how that works across your team.
So when we first started, Jess made, she liked to see the 3 lessons each week in a box. Yeah. Whereas I'm more linear. I kind of, and because I'd taught some of the stuff we were teaching before. So then she made her own and someone else made their own. And then I thought, well, why don't we just make one? Like whether it's lesson 1, 2 or 3 of the week, you might have it on a different day, but that's lesson 1, 2, 3. And so then when we started creating all these resources like the vocab slide deck, rather than have to go to another folder and find the slide deck, let's just hyperlink it in there. And so, so the other thing I was going to say, the big thing in the middle school is there is no lesson lottery. So it does not matter. So on the old model, 2023, you were getting a very different English experience in Year 7 English depending on who was in front of that class. Yeah. This middle school model, there is no lesson lottery. So, and the parents know it. Like, we haven't come back to talk about the parents, but the parents know it. And they know because they have group chats and they know that I'm doing a Mungo Man assessment and so is everyone else. And they know the same material, the same opportunity, everyone's getting the same, unless they need support or differentiation.
Yeah, I love that. Quickly, just tell us what you are hearing from parents in your conversations with them. What are they seeing, hearing, giving back to you?
So I would say gratitude. The parents are really grateful for the work that we are doing. We have a lot of students come to us in Year 7 with low literacy skills, and so they are grateful that we are taking the time to help those students grow in their areas of deficiency. They understand that we are using explicit instruction to get learning into the long-term memory so that the more automatic and recall it is, the less load on their cognitive load. So the parents know that. I sit in my room having a learning conference. Behind me are the vocab words. They're going, monomyth, I don't think I've ever used that word. Or, trope, I didn't learn about a trope until I was in Year 12 English. So they know that the bar is high. We use iPads, we use GoodNotes, so the students are using the stylus pen to write. And I had my learning conference just after we'd finished writing Mungo Man in class, and so I said, here's the essay. that can't be my child's, that's not their handwriting. I went, well, yes, it is, because the kids are handwriting so much more. And so their handwriting's improving. Did they write that much? How could they write that much? Oh my God, I wasn't writing that much. So they know the bar is high, and we talk about that. Like, I've always been a high expectation, high support, and that is the other big thing I'd say to any teacher. Set the bar high. We meet our Year 7s in December for an orientation day. So I meet my 24 students who will be in 7 Oaks. I talk then about every time you walk in this room, you are ready to learn. And we say it all the time. We've got three I don't know, they're not really rules, 3 things.
Yeah.
Be safe, be respectful, be ready to learn.
Yeah.
I don't need to co-construct class rules, like those 3 cover it.
I love it. But you're talking about high expectations, but yeah, as you say, high support, but high success.
100%.
I mean, what you're talking about is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the parents, the parents can see that, like they can see the work. A number of our students come to Year 7 without an A to E rating in Year 6. So they've just had a comment only.
Yeah.
And so these students are getting feedback at Australian curriculum, at standard, term 1, Year 7. So that's pretty huge. The other thing I was going to talk about, I did write down, because one of the things was like student success or cohort success.
Yep.
I just wanted to, this is one student, but this is a student who came to Year 7 last year, so he's currently in Year 8, didn't get a rating for English. His ORF at the beginning of the year was 102. His ORF at the end of the year was 148, so put him at benchmark. His maze at the beginning of the year was 11. His maze at the end of the year was 31. So in 3 minutes, he's found correct 20 more words. His single word spelling test was 12, and at the end of the year, it was 32. And the biggest gains...
That's undeniable success.
Yeah, and he's one of many. He was my poster boy of success for 2025, and he presented his journey to the incoming Year 6 parents in November last year. So he stood up and talked about his growth. And so we also celebrate that growth. So it's okay to be here, but if we do this work together, this is where you can end up.
Yeah. Well, when you've got your own students telling about where they were and where they aren't, that's amazing. Yeah. Nicola, I can't think of anything else to ask you. I'm really grateful for your time. Thanks for listening to The Learning Landscape.